Raiders of the Pale Blue Dot. They fixed an eye toward us. It was one of those absurd telescopes that looked more like a planet-busting artillery cannon made of gold than any scientific device, but it was sharp. They adjusted their ranges and fixed their precise tables like good stewards. They monitored every heartbeat and breath of the planet, putting a scientific nose to our system and tasting the scent. Earth, light years away but as supple and lovely as they come. A plump blueberry spinning in tight circles around her favorite orange, blasting radio waves out of her pores like pollen for interstellar bees. The universe rarely makes such wonderful gifts. Are they armed? That was the natural first question. Hard to tell, said the creature behind the telescope. But they can't see us. We'd be able to detect the fluctuations in their devices. So they can't be that advanced. That was enough. Everything about Earth was just too tantalizing. She was like a bare, mouth-watering leg arcing out from behind a wall, inviting some brave soul to come and explore the rest. What wonders could be ravaged, what great resources and power could be harnessed, what awesome glory such a blue beauty held beneath her white blankets. It did not take long to amass an armada. Ask for volunteers and the line is empty, but ask for raiders and it somehow turns into an army, one of the more discreet universal constants. Their ships were lined with great planet-busting guns and decorated in the gems of their many victories. They were peacocks whose beaks had been replaced with bazookas, great flying villas filled with both decadence and depravity. Like many conquerors, they celebrated their soldiers leaving to kill. These things have a way of blurring away from the shape of war. It was more of an outing for them, a distant ball where their soldiers had to simply dance and return wearing regalia. What was blood? What was death? That was all out there. It went well and joyous. They celebrated all night long, then watched as the great golden ships cruised off into the depths of space, beaming beyond the speed of light and well out of range for communication. They were off to war with Earth, and they'd only know how it went from the astronomical signs. Cosmic war is anything but quiet. It was at that exact moment, when the ships arced deep into the void, that the original scientist who had used his great and glorious telescope to find Earth made a horrible discovery. In a panic, he called for whoever could hear him to return to his lab. "What is it?" The audience cried with party-induced exhaustion. "Look!" He pointed to his machine, still honed in on the pale blue dot. "Look at it!" Their untrained eyes were confused. "That is the planet, no?" "Yes, but can't you see?" "I was wrong." "How?" "I thought they weren't looking back at us because their interference was stable, there was no change." The audience was silent as they waited for the raving creature to finish his thoughts. "I was wrong. It is stable not because they can't see us, but because they've been watching us this whole time." A cold suspense filled the crowd, deafened slightly from their exhausting celebrations but altogether suffocated by the choking emptiness of the sky above them. Their ships were gone, moving faster than the speed of communication, heading toward a planet that was waiting for them. What did that mean? It meant that Earth had made her first catch. Raiders of the Pale Blue Dot, Part 2. The golden bullets filled with guiled-up warriors blasted across the stars at unstoppable speeds, drinking in yet unearned glory as if it were as guaranteed as entropy. In their minds, it was not battle or bloodshed that awaited them, but victory and good old-fashioned loot. There exists not one single self-aware pebble that doesn't love stuff, and even the inanimate pebbles have to smirk at some classic thievery. Yet, they did not know. They hadn't the faintest idea that back at home, their leaders and mothers were collapsing into great panic attacks. Every alarm and interplanetary horn was hitting the big red abort button, yet what self-respecting pioneer would ever dream of looking homeward when moving towards the horizon? They crashed through the void at barbarous speeds, heading right towards a mighty surprise. Earth awaited. One might think that the humans had some great and intricate plan for meeting the invaders. Maybe a long list of orders and a large, military battle map about how things would play out, but one would only think that if they'd never met a human. Instead, it was more like a back alley mugging, where one guy would look pretty with his 2 missing teeth, and the other would wait behind a dumpster with a bat, ready to jump at the victim while screaming unintelligible jargon. Like all things human, they chose to pack their plans with self-righteous machismo and smelly hormones instead of anything real and logical. It was going to be ruthless and rugged, as rusty as the shiv they planned on using, and as improv as the entirety of their existence. Mankind was like the fish who'd found out they lived in a bowl, a dog who had discovered his invisible fence. They fully grasped their own primitive nature and leaned into it. Mankind had no planetary cannons or faster-than-light drives. They exhibited no high-level functions nor incredible forethought. By traditional metrics, they were the galactic equivalent of a krill. Yet, what they had in absolute abundance was a deep willingness to get as dirty as the soily earth that had birthed them. In fact, one could even say they loved it. This was something that every other intelligent piece of matter had evolved out of themselves. All other smart creatures had morphed traditionally carnal acts into more sophisticated and clean shows of culture. War wasn't a trench-filled muddy mess, it was a grand event where one aimed their ship cannons and watched as ants scattered beneath them. Raiding wasn't unseemly and taxing, it was like riding a cruise ship across the stars, drinking and dancing as they prepared to play existential whack-a-mole. So the last thing the invaders expected when arriving at Earth was a planet glaring her yellow teeth back at them, smiling a smile that smelled like cheap cigarettes. The invaders lowered their ships into the atmosphere, wiping off the celebration that was still fresh on their lips and getting excited for some classy action. Usually, this is where they just start blasting without remorse, but they had to admire something strange occurring first. Across the small rocky planet, along every street and coming from almost every home, was a strange tune. All humans knew the tune well, it was AC/DC's Thunderstruck, but to the invaders it was just strange, rhythmic nonsense. They smirked at the quirkiness. You have to understand, what happened next was unprecedented from a cosmic perspective. This is why the invaders just could not recover. The sight was like witnessing the breaking of intergalactic law. In absolutely no unity or respect for timing, the humans erupted into hellacious and disgusting warfare. They presented no central figure or HQ to target, no centralized effort or combined push could be seen. At this point in human history, they'd figured out that they were just natural at this kind of stuff and simply left it up to the individual. It was like upsetting an ant's nest, except every single ant had a gun and didn't care about anything else except using it. Jets blossomed into the sky from all over the planet, tanks emerged from concrete bunkers, and anti-air turrets rose from the ground like metallic lilies. Perhaps strangest of all, individual people themselves left their homes, guns pointed at the great golden bullets that had just crossed the galaxy, and firing at them with pure joy. It was absolute mayhem, chaos that transcended all understanding. From all angles, the invaders were being shived and spat on. From every direction a hairless ape was singing along to some rhythmic nonsense and unleashing unfettered hell. In some sense, the invaders more short-circuited than actually died. Either way, by the end of the invasion, a graveyard of once golden glory lay smoldering and destroyed along Earth's crust. Crawling through the innards of this once magnificent beast and standing atop its bare ribs were the hairless apes, brandishing disparate flags and collecting absolutely useless memorabilia. They harvested some technological meat and stuffed it into their own creations, developing horrible chimeras of science and destruction. They didn't even bother cleaning up the mess, as they knew that more flies were swerving into their beloved trap. Across the stars, a story was repeating itself, one of sophistication arming itself and darting away faster than communication, aiming at an earthen sphere that seemed helpless and filled with honey. The hairless apes could hardly contain their excitement. Only one thing escaped the first back alley mugging, and it wasn't an invader. It was one desperate and confused message, a single signal flung out into the void in a desperate attempt to save some creature of class. One invader, right before a homemade RPG tore into his ship, sent the following warning to the stars.
Do not approach! This planet houses apes of mayhem.
The end.